Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today on another series of taking a little bit more of an in-depth look at some of the different Microsoft features and different opportunities that exist out there for you guys to capitalize on your Microsoft investments that you're making for your different business strategies that you have. Today we're going to take a look at Microsoft Intune and Endpoint Manager. My name is Jeff Napersky. I'm a Senior Professional Services Engineer here at Winslow Technology, and one of the services that we have a great offering on for anybody that's interested is just getting your Intune environment set up and ready and making sure at the end of the day you have the best automation strategy for any of your endpoint devices that you might be using. As far as Intune's concerned, the way that I look at it is it's really broken down into two main areas. You have the device side of the house that you're maintaining your devices and how they're connecting and what's going to be available to them. And then there's the applications that go on the devices or mobile devices that you want to make sure that the data coming in and out of it is as secure as possible, and you're having the easiest strategy to make the applications available to the end users at the end of the day. Some other key areas within Intune, just taking kind of a high level approach on this. You're configuring devices, you're protecting devices, and you're managing those apps. So some little bit of tidbits on the configuring devices. There's configuration policies, there's configuration profiles. There's an Autopilot piece that we're going to talk about that can really streamline your device enrollment at the end of the day. And then there's normal, still standard traditional enrollments that you could use. As far as protecting the device or the data itself, tons of different policies and platforms that exist in the Intune platform that you can capitalize yourself on, such as endpoint security, compliance policies, app protection policies. And then the last piece to that is going to be managing the apps. So how are you going to deploy these apps out for devices or mobile devices? And then how can you automate that process to really streamline the way that those apps themselves are sending and receiving data? From a high-level architecture standpoint on Intune, there's a lot of things to digest on this picture, but you could see that Microsoft Intune talks with Azure Active Directory. It has ticks and ties into Office 365 or other SaaS applications. You can get your mobile devices to talk to that data and be compliant within your strategy. You can do things through just your normal web console. Really just about any device has some ability to talk with Intune at the end of the day and get your apps and get your production workflows working. As far as devices supported, these are your main areas that you're going to be focusing on with Windows, Mac OS, and then on the mobile side with iOS and Android as well. As far as how Intune's licensed, this is a big piece that I think a lot of people don't know about, where depending on what type of Microsoft licensing you already have in place, you might have this already. You might have that platform and you just might not be utilizing it. So you could see your normal enterprise E3 and E5s come with this. You could have add-ons to enterprise mobility and security E3 and E5, even on the business premium side. So as long as you don't have business standard and you have business premium, you're getting Intune with it already, that you can start utilizing these features and start streamlining your device deployment. And then on the government side and education, they're all also some licensing that does include Intune as well. On the first side, the device side of the Intune piece, you can see this is a typical life cycle of a managed device within Intune. So you're going to enroll the device to get it to talk and check in with Intune. You're going to configure different policies and different compliance policies that are going to standardize the way that the devices could either work with themselves, work with other devices or different applications. You're going to protect those devices, whether it's through multi-factor authentication, Windows Hello for Business, and then also protection through endpoint protection, Windows updates to make sure that you're getting the latest and greatest from what Microsoft's putting out, and then also just controlling your firewall on the devices as well. And then at the end of the day, whether a device got lost, stolen, you're just removing corporate data from it, or you're just doing a refresh on it. All you have to do is there's different buttons right within the Intune platform to be able to very easily make sure that device is wiped or it's ready for the next user. Taking a look at enrolling devices, tons of different ways to get those devices to talk with Intune itself. You could see that you can bring your own device. You could use for an Apple iPhone. You could go through USB. You can go through the Apple configurator. There's the Autopilot side. There's co-management. You can get a device to talk through Intune through a group policy. You can have a bulk enroll through uploading a spreadsheet of device information. There's auto enrollment ways to do it. So Microsoft did a great job really to make sure that if you want to get your device to talk with Intune, they have a way to get it there for you. That one key area that really makes a big difference at the end of the day is Autopilot itself. So the graphic does a great job of what the whole workflow process looks like, but if you're kind of running through a scenario where you're even talking to Winslow and you're saying, hey, I need 40 devices, how are you going to image those devices and get them to your end users and make sure that they're ready to go? A great part of Autopilot is that could be automated for you, really taking out a lot of those pieces that you're normally used to setting up where you're constantly maintaining that golden image. That could really become a thing of the past for you, where you can automatically, even from the device vendor, whether it could be Dell, Lenovo, HP, whoever it might be, you can get that information automatically uploaded into your Intune profile prior to even receiving the devices. You get those devices, they'll already have that Autopilot enrollment information in your portal, and you can very rapidly deploy those out to your end users at the end of the day. This really could become a standard practice for you to really make your device deployment a lot easier. And then, like I said, you're no longer requiring those custom images because you're just relying on the OEM Windows license that came with your device, and you're just completely taking over that out-of-box experience and really making it your own, and then start deploying out your apps, your devices, and giving it to the end user to be ready to go. Another area that we're going to take a look at is going to be configuration profiles. This, at the end of the day, if you're trying to relate it back to something that's going to be on-premise, would be similar to like what a group policy could be. So within the Intune platform itself, if you were going to make a configuration profile, I kind of gave some examples there in the screenshots of what you might be deploying. So if you want to deploy out Wi-Fi settings to every device that's going to be on your network, or maybe start controlling certain features that are going to be turned on and off, like if you don't want the Windows Store to be turned on, or there's certain certificates that need to be imported. All of those settings could be applied right through a configuration profile. These could be customized to really get your end user experience as standardized as possible. These rely on baselines, and then a very similar structure to administrative templates that you might be used to with group policies on-prem. Intune and Microsoft has set out some different setting catalogs, as well as some other pre-template pieces that you can start customizing and getting on those end user devices. The other side, on the device side, is the compliance policies. So at the end of the day, you may be held to different type of restrictions or compliance standards that you have to have a certain level on every device that's going to be within your network or talking to your network devices. Intune allows you to turn on different compliance features, such as making sure that everybody has Bitlocker turned on, or making sure that the minimum OS version of whatever device is checking in maintains just from a security best practices standpoint. And then the great part of it is if the device is non-compliant, there's different actions that you could trigger to protect your company devices and your data at the end of the day. This can also be combined with conditional access rules within the Azure Active Directory platform. And then there's even reporting available that you could be giving to internal audits or different other type of compliance audits that you may be going through as well. As far as managing Windows 10 and 11 and some of the iOS updates, you could utilize right within the Intune platform some of the features that they have in place already. So if you want to get all of Windows updates installed on all of your Windows 10 devices or Windows 11 devices, you can get those updates on there. If you're pushing out some of the major features, such as jumping up to Windows 21H2, you can standardize that and get deployed out on all end user devices. And even the quality updates and the drivers could be deployed out as well from that. And then as far as the iOS and iPadOS standpoint, you could do that same thing where devices could automatically go get those latest updates, and you can set scheduled intervals to get those devices up to date as well. A great feature that does come baked right within Intune right off from day one is going to be either retirement or wiping of devices. We can all think back to those potential days where someone's coming to you saying, hey, I lost my device, and you just think what's data is sitting on there and how am I going to get that back? Right from the portal, it's nothing more than a click of a button to, as long as that device has an internet connection or checked in that next time to internet, you can retire that data, you can wipe it, and really make sure that it goes back to that clean slate of what it is. And another great feature that's not on here, but you can actually use is right within the Intune portal itself, it does have device tracking where it can give you a pinpoint location where that device might be if it was lost or potentially stolen. On the other side, so we talked a little bit about the device management side. There is an application management side. So whether you're just doing device management or if you're also going to be installing applications, this is going to be that other part of the life cycle. So tons of different ways that you can add different apps to get put into the Intune portal to be deployed out to your end users. There's line of business apps, so that might be an MSI of Zoom or other applications that you might have internally. There's built-in apps that could be applied. You can pull apps down from the Windows Store, and then also even from any type of app on the web, whether it's an executable, an MSI, there's different methods and ways to get that deployed in there, even through scripting as well. The next part of that life cycle is going to be how you're actually going to deploy it to the end user. So you can specify that by different groups and different categories to make sure that it's going to get put on the end user devices. You can do a little bit of hardening on that one by configuring different configuration policies to streamline that, or even if you are kind of tightening the reins on how you want your end user browsers to be displayed, you can put those different type of policies in there as well. And then from a protection standpoint, same thing as the devices are concerned, you can add conditional access and different app protection policies just to make sure the data coming in and out of that device is as protected as possible. And then the great feature that comes along with this as well is you have an old piece of software that you need to get removed out of there. There are methods and different ways to get the apps off of the device as well through a couple clicks of the button. Like I said, deploying apps come in a lot of different ways and flavors. They have the apps from the store that would be like a web link for putting that on an end user device. There could be an in-house or a custom app, which would be considered a line of business, whether it's an executable or that could be an MSI file. You can also deploy out Office 365 and pick and choose what apps are going to get put on the end user devices. So if you don't want the end users to have PowerPoint, or if you want to take off access, that could be provisioned within a couple clicks of a button. And then you can also pull apps from the web based off of a web link. And then you can also put these apps in a company portal that they could be accessed as well if they needed to, and put protection in place with conditional access and everything else through that sign-in. As far as app configuration policies are concerned, this is going to take some of those necessary steps to getting the app configured before they actually run the app. So if they're getting those prompt boxes when everything's getting set up in provision, these are ways that you can actually kind of take care of that already for them so they can really just get in and use the device. And then even from an iOS, an iPad, or Android standpoint, you can do the same thing with those apps. So some of those examples could be branding, different security settings, and then even within the Office platform, you can control how the data comes in and out of those Office apps as well. As far as protecting devices, this is another big key area within Intune that takes a good hard look at how those devices are protected at the end of the day. a lot of different ways to protect them. So there's different security baselines that you can turn features on or off. There's over 100 settings that you can configure and manipulate to make sure that devices are hardened and streamlined as best as possible. You could deploy out endpoint encryption or endpoint defender. You can have Bitlocker encryption or file vault for Macs. You can control access policies and different type of rules within the firewall of the device. And you can take it a step further with an EDR solution as well, and other further steps to reduce that attack surface. And at the same time, you can maintain that compliance with different checks. And then you can also apply conditional access to these as well. As far as security baselines are concerned, this is something provided by Microsoft that has some pre-configured settings. Like I said before, there was hundreds of settings that are configurable. You could even apply customized profiles and templates, but Microsoft does a great job to give a lot of settings right out there that you can get configured, get set up, and make sure that your devices are protected at the end of the day. Another great area that used to be somewhat more of a manual process that could be automated and silently deployed out to everybody is going to be Bitlocker encryption. Through the piece of software that is on Intune, you can see there's an endpoint security side, and you can make a policy to deploy out Bitlocker to everybody. Some great features of it, like I said, are the silent encryption methods to automatically get this applied out to the devices. The encryption keys will get stored right within Intune and the Azure AD environment itself. So if something happens, worst case scenario, you can quickly grab that recovery key for them. You can also rotate keys for best practices, and then you can also restrict other removable media. So if you don't want flash drives plugged in or other type of removable media, you can set those restrictions up as well or encrypt them as well. As far as Defender for Endpoint is concerned, another key leader in the security and endpoint detection practice. It has been recognized by Gartner and Forrester as a leader in endpoint and detection and response. It is available for Windows, Mac, Linux, Android, iOS, and other network devices as well. This one does come with a caveat that usually you need a specific license or an add-on to make this possible. Microsoft does like to say this is a single pane of glass for endpoint security management, which is a great kind of peace of mind. So at the end of the day, you are under that best practice platform. And then there's configurable policies right within Intune itself to configure your Defender or your firewall or your EDR solution for Microsoft as well. Some other great features to kind of keep in mind that could be a benefit for you if you are looking at the Intune platform. Endpoint Analytics was a great one that I recently discovered that gives you a lot of key metrics that you may or may not know about for these devices and can give you some recommendations along the way as well. So it's going to take a look at the startup performance of devices and kind of give you a score on how well they're performing. You can break that down by models, devices, startup processes themselves to see maybe what is actually going on and why that end user device might be starting up a little bit slower. And there's a lot of other recommendations that you could see on that one screenshot that you can dive into and get a lot more information on. And then you can see even there's some other features such as application reliability, where if apps are crashing, then you can kind of analyze as to why those apps are crashing, or maybe you need to update it to a newer version. There's different ways that you can dive in and get those key metrics. As far as reporting is concerned, lots of different reports or even custom reports that you can access right from the Intune platform itself. So you could see, you can analyze how the Windows updates are performing, get your statuses of the different device compliance policies that you have set in place. You can get a report that comes out of how your devices are checking in with the configuration profiles that you have set. And even from the endpoint security side, you can get some reports on firewall and the Microsoft Defender antivirus, and you can see that Endpoint Analytics is baked right into that reporting as well. And you can get these different reports exported out that you can share with other team members as well. Another newer feature that kind of keeps getting new things added along the way, where all of us are notorious that we have that on-prem group policy that may have a lot of different policies in place, or we're looking at taking a good hard look and we really want to start centralizing the way all of those policies get applied out to everybody. You can actually export out of your group policy the policies themselves and analyze them within Intune to get those best practices on how to import it and kind of get it under that single portal instead of relying on on-prem and Intune at the same time. On some future releases, they're going to actually provide additional analysis on how it could get put into Intune, as well as some importing capabilities where it's not going to be a manual process to import it. It's going to take care of that for you already, making that whole process a lot easier along the way. To kind of wrap things up with Intune, if you are looking to streamline your processes, if you want to make sure that all of your devices are compliant, if you're having some struggles with some of your existing device deployment, or even if you're just trying to look to standardize the way that your organization's deploying applications out, this is one great tool and feature that could really benefit you at the end of the day. And from a Winslow technology standpoint, we have the expertise to help you out with that. So if you have any questions or anything like that on learning a little bit more about what Intune can do, or get a demo, or see how it could benefit your organization, feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to kind of guide you along the way to give you that great performance.